Welcome to another writing vlog. I've been having a weird time with writing. Over the last year, I haven't really struggled with writing, which has been fantastic. It's been a bit of an anomaly, and I've been very grateful for it. But starting from about the very end of November to December 2022, I've been having a little bit of trouble with writing. I'm struggling a little bit with the part I'm at in my book, which is an adult contemporary fantasy novel called Seventh Virtue. I've been writing it since May of 2021, and I'm almost done the first draft, which is a very, very, very long first draft. It is quite literally 172,000 words, but I've been having a little bit of an issue. I'm in my struggle bus area just a little bit, but I don't feel so fatalistic about it anymore. Let's talk about the differences between me struggling with writing now versus me struggling with writing a couple of years ago. So as many writers, I also have a hard time with writing sometimes. It's very normal, even though I make videos on writing. Of course, I still experience things like writer's block, insecurity, etc., etc. I used to take the issues I had with writing very, very, very personally, and it was hard for me to feel like I was in a stable place in my life if my writing wasn't also in a stable place. I have since been able to kind of divorce that attitude a little bit. A couple of things that have helped me is, just being kinder about the process, writing things that I genuinely love, as well as not really second guessing drafts. Whatever I write down is kind of what I write down. But funnily enough, yesterday was the first time in a while where I felt like, oh man, what I wrote down isn't really working. Like, it's not really what I wanted to write. I've been very lucky that the last, 100,000 words of Seventh Virtue, everything has been pretty much like, yeah, that's how I wanted to write it. But the issue is that this is kind of like a really major thing, and it's harder to swat past. The difference now is that, I'm aware that I can't really do much in the moment besides sort of, accepting where I'm at. Yesterday, I was doing some writing, and I do think that the session had a bit of a breakthrough moment because I was aware, like, you know what, I'm not going to shit on myself the whole time I'm drafting. I'm just gonna take this slow and sort of tweak the draft that I already had because I'd written, like maybe 1,000 words of a scene, and I knew it had gone wrong at some point. It veered off in the wrong direction, and it did something I didn't want it to do. I wanted it to be quite quiet, and it got way too loud, way too emotional, not really what I was looking to write. Yesterday, I just went line by line, listened to the same song on loop so I could really get into the writing. I've been listening to a lot of Sarah Kinsley, who I love so much, and she has a great song called The Giver. I was listening to that on repeat because it was the vibes of the scene. That helped me get into a mindset where I felt a lot more comfortable in the scene in order to sort of pull it apart and be also comfortable with kind of disrupting what I'd already written. Something that has also helped in comparison to me a couple of years ago is I used to be quite precious about my writing. Like, I didn't necessarily want to change it too much, or I felt like I failed if I had to go and change things. But this time around, I was like, I don't care. I'm just gonna go in, I'm gonna make the changes that I need to make. And I think it went relatively successfully. So this morning, I'm going to reread the scene, kind of see where I'm at, maybe tweak it a little bit, and hopefully I can finish it because I feel like this has been a long time coming, and it's about time to kind of press the end on this scene. In other news, I was rereading Seventh Virtue yesterday because I was cooking and I wanted to reread some of the books. So I got Word app to read it to me. They have robot voices. I read quite a large chunk of it, maybe like 2 hours worth of Seventh Virtue. It was really funny. The Harrison chapters, I miss him. I haven't written with him when he's just being a goofy idiot in a while because things have been so serious in the book. But the chapters I was reading, now they're very serious, but sometimes he could still be inappropriate. I was having a great time rereading the book, really understanding the dynamics and the relationships, looking back on when everything seems so normal before things kind of get fucked for the characters, basically. Something I also was doing yesterday was I was re-editing a vlog that I filmed in, I think, October and November of 2021, and I never posted it because I never finished it, but I did finish it because it was literally like 30 minutes worth of raw footage. So I was recutting that so I could upload it kind of and then give commentary of things that have changed in the book. And what was interesting in that video is that the book was only at 50,000 words at the time. It was right before NaNoWriMo 2021, which I failed epically. 2022 I redeemed and I won NaNoWriMo. I was talking about how I was quite overwhelmed, I think, with the project and the scope of it and the world and the magic, and because Harrison didn't understand, and Harrison's my narrator, he didn't understand how the world worked. I also didn't understand it because I was pantsing releasing it. And it was funny to look back on it and see how much progress I've actually made on the project, because at that point, I didn't really work on Seventh Virtue that much. You know, last year about this time, I was just at 50,000 words in the book, and now I'm at 172,000 words, which is just wow. At that point, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to like finish the book, and I'm so happy that I'm at this state now. And I also understand it way better. I know the conflicts, I know the magic system relatively well. And so it's just great that I had like a recording of the early book versus the book right now. I'm working on a story for class, so I thought I would kind of take you through my thought process, because for the first time in a while, I'm like not feeling good about my writing. Not in a way that like I'm feeling necessarily insecure about this, which I'll kind of give some context, because there is some fun context with this story. So this story, let's just kind of outline. It's called Holiday. It's technically done. Technically. It is so far from done. But technically I have a draft. It's 3,100 words. A lot of it's going to be removed. But what's fun about this story is that it's actually an iteration of a chapter in Seventh Virtue that I've been really wanting to shift into an actual short story, because it just stands on its own, I think, quite nicely. It is a chapter in Reeve's point of view when she's home alone in her ex's apartment. Kind of practice for the novel, which is based off of this relationship called Houses with Teeth. It's not going to be like a typical short story. The structure isn't supposed to be that way. It's not going to be like, you know, if you saw my video on how to write short stories, it's not going to be that 4-step structure. That's like one type of short story, and this is not going to be that. Because of that, I'm like struggling just a little bit, because it's not my comfort zone. But the whole point in me trying this is to try something new, because I've written so many short stories in that like really typical Raymond Carver-esque short story structure. I like the first paragraph, which is funny because it's literally not changed from how it was in the chapter in Seventh Virtue. The second paragraph, I can already tell where there are going to be issues. So I think what my plan of action for this story is going to be to adapt it. I just want to go in and break it, because I want the scenes like to be very short. I just want it to be made of vignettes, and then the vignettes sort of lead to a bit of an arc, but it's not going to be anything too defined. So I think I had already done this. I went in and I already broke up, a lot of the scenes, so that they appear just like, you know, they're just in smaller chunks rather than in one big chunk. Quite quickly, let's see, this is page 2. It's page 2. By page 2, something happens that I don't want to happen in the story, and it takes us through the rest of the story, which is 9 pages. So I basically have 7 pages of story that I don't necessarily need. So technically, if I deleted the last 7 pages, I probably have like 700 words. Oh my God, not even that much. 585 words. You know, there's still room for adaptation. There are bits in Seventh Virtue that I think I can kind of use here. I'm very intimidated by approaching this. Okay, speaking of Seventh Virtue, let me just update on where the project is at, because it's much better than when I last talked to you. I was having some issues with like sort of a scene that I was writing, and I was rewatching the last clip literally on this camera to try to figure out what I was talking about. And while I was watching it, I realized what the problem was. I've been in this new sort of era. It's a new part of the book. It's the 5th part of the book. It's gonna be the last part of the book, I hope. It's a location change. There are new characters. It's kind of a new conflict, right? And there are new goals because of this new conflict. And I'm realizing now as I'm talking to you, the problem is that it's just new. It's something I have to get used to. I remember when I first hit the Peterson subplot in Seventh Virtue, which was very quickly after I started writing it back in 2021. So let's say I hit the Peterson's place, maybe like, I don't know, August of that year, maybe before then. There are vlogs of me probably talking about it because it's quite early in the book. But I remember when I did, I was super uncomfortable. And up until that point, I'd had like a really great groove with Seventh Virtue. It was so easy. I wasn't really struggling too much. Obviously, there are like issues here and there, but overall, it wasn't that difficult. Now I realize, obviously, I'm going to be struggling because I've been writing like the Peterson subplot. The last 140,000 words have been at that subplot. It went from subplot to the plot, which was not expected. I didn't think that we were going to be stuck at the Peterson estate for that long, but you know, it was something I got used to. But I remember I hated it when I originally got there. I was like, what have I done? This is so uncomfortable. And I'm realizing now, like, there's no going back to that. I think in a way it's like the acceptance, and it kind of sucks because I was really enjoying where I was at in writing. Like right when I was super comfortable, everything just like really shifted. Like October and November, I was writing like the best part of this book, I think. And then now it's over, and that kind of sucks. But at the same time, I mean, you just gotta let the time pass because I'm gonna write the next best part of it anyway. But I realized why the problem. It's like, obviously, I'm just uncomfortable. There's nothing actually wrong with the writing. There's nothing wrong with my ideas or how I've been executing anything. It's just like internally feeling uncomfortable. So I thought that there was something wrong with the book. There wasn't. In terms of that chapter I was working on in my last vlog too, I finished it. It was about 5,500 words in the end. I ended up calling it Sand Bottle, and it's so good. I'll read some excerpts probably at the end. I loved this chapter. I think it turned out exactly how I wanted it, even though it was a bit tricky because a lot of this work is subtle work. It's subtextual. I didn't want to have a heavy hand. You know, when you're writing a first draft, it can be so easy like to write with a heavy hand. It's kind of like the most natural thing is to just paint in everything so obviously. I took my time with it when drafting and then also going back and revising it and sort of taking out the end bit. It was like 500 words I cut out and then rewrote it in a way that made sense. And that was helpful because it allowed me to like stew in that subtext. But I'm really happy with it. I feel bad for my characters. Poor them. It sucks. I haven't been working on the book like really since then. I have a chapter that I want to work on, but because I want to work on this story just a little bit, I'm going to just set a goal to work on it for like 20 minutes. But I have like the very beginning of chapter 43, which is the next chapter after 42 was Sand Bottle. I have this mapped out. Like I went in and I wrote out some notes. When you get to the end of the book, it kind of gets a little bit overwhelming and confusing, I think, as a pantser, in the sense that, you know, I am aware that I have ideas that I want to write, but also the book keeps taking me in different directions. And the last chapter, Sand Bottle, did that. It kind of created a new thing that I have to like add to my scene list. So I did that just to organize myself a little bit, but you know, I'm kind of embracing the chaos a little bit. If this is the direction the book wants to go, this is the direction, and this is what I want to write, so that's what I'm gonna write. Somebody I miss though is Harrison, because I haven't written with him in a chapter in a while. I think I was working on his chapter since December. Like it took a while. Like chapter 41 was the last chapter he was in, and it took me probably like 2-3 weeks to write it, when usually like I can finish a chapter in 2 days if I wanted to, or even 1 day in Seventh Virtue, at least. Not in my other projects. This project writes itself. I do miss him, but I don't really know what to do with his plot right now. So I'm like focusing on the plot that I do understand in hopes that by the time I get to the end of this next Reef chapter, I'm like, okay, now I know what to do with Harrison. I have no idea. So all of the emoing over the last 3 vlogs or whatever is over, I would say. Well, I'm gonna regret that. Knock on wood. I have no wood here, so knock on this IKEA fake wood. Hi guys, so the last time I updated this vlog, I was working on a short story. The update is that after the 20-minute writing sprint, I had about like a page, maybe 2 pages. I wrote like a tiny new vignette because the story is told in, you know, quite short scenes. So that's good. I have not worked on it since because I just have not felt like it. I finished a chapter in Seventh Virtue, which actually I'm really happy with how it turned out. And then the second one that I was working, it's just like the sequence of chapters and like sort of like a mini like arc. It was so hard. I wasn't getting like the emotional arc correct, and I knew what the issue was, and that it was so delicate that if I like sort of messed up or I didn't have the right line or the right detail, that I wouldn't hit right. So last night I spent like 2 hours going through the chapter and sort of revising it from the original state. The night before, I'd left myself a pretty extensive note on some ideas for revisions that I could do because I knew that there were some issues that I needed to address. That note came in handy because I was able to pretty much turn it into something that I'm happy with. That means this section of this scene, at least I don't think the chapter is over, is now done, which is good because I don't think we're gonna have any more scenes with like very complicated emotional arcs in Seventh Virtue for a while. At least I hope not, because like I can't right now. I'm too tired. I had a really cool weekend. I had a reading, which was fun. It's the first one I've done in a really long time. I also signed up for another one for an issue that I'm in, which is gonna be fun. But that one was particularly great because I was able to sign some books. Like, what? Am I an author? It felt really great. It was really fun, and it was nice to just feel like, oh wow, I've actually done things. Because obviously I make these videos, obviously I publish my work, I share a lot of my work, but sometimes like it just, I don't know, it doesn't feel like you are doing much. And so just to be able to actually hear from people who don't even know me, who are like, your writing is really cool, it was just really exciting. Yesterday I made a Tumblr post, and I was like, I feel like I've been very nice to my book and I give it so much publicity. Like, why is it not writing itself? And like 5 minutes after I posted that, I actually went in and fixed all the issues I was having. So maybe I need to complain more often, because it seems that when I complain, it gets it out of my system and then I'm more motivated to actually write. The rest of the night, I have to work on a revision for class. I'm submitting a short story separate from the other one to my class this coming week. So I need to just give the story a quick line edit. I don't think it's gonna need that much. I honestly don't really care. So I'm just gonna try to tweak the sentences, because there's at least one that I know is quite awkward, and hopefully it doesn't take me very long, because today I spent all day working on a video, which was really fun. I was working on a collab that I'm doing with Anna New, who is a really great authortuber if you don't already watch Anna's videos. But we were doing a collab where we're writing a short story with AI. So I spent the earlier part of this morning actually writing the story and then filming the video and then editing the video. So it's probably taken me about like 8 hours today. Feeling good about where the video is at, and also happy that I was able to write a short story this month. It's like a flash fiction piece. It's like 500 something words. I do have a goal to write a short story every other month of this year, so I guess this one counts. So technically I don't have to write one in February. Hey guys, so to close off this vlog, let's read a couple of excerpts, because that's become my tradition and I enjoy sharing my writing with you guys. Let me know what you guys think of these sections that I'm about to share. I'm gonna share 3. So the first one is just a quick description of Reeve just describing her childhood bedroom. So this is from the chapter that I'm currently working on that is not yet finished, but hopefully I can finish it in the next vlog. Her gaze flicks around her room, bluish in the early morning. She first studies the crystal figurine mouse she'd been gifted by her father on her 8th birthday that now sits on the windowsill. Then the fading mural of ivy leaves her mother had painted when she was an infant. Then an open notebook on the desk, a ballpoint pen still uncapped next to it. Something shifts in her chest. What had she been writing before she abandoned this room once and for all? A letter to her brother that she'd forgotten to take? Or a goodbye to her sister, a biopic reminiscing on their failed closeness? Or perhaps it was a drawing for Chris, who would have been 10 when Reeve left. Yeah, of course, this is in Reeve's point of view. She's talking about her siblings, which is fun, because she has a lot of siblings. Because I have a lot of siblings, or at least, you know, what I constitute to be a lot of siblings. There are 4 of them in total. I'm 4 of us in total in my family, so it's kind of fun to write the family dynamic that obviously I have, except, you know, Reeve's family sucks, except for Lonan. So it's kind of fun to hear her sort of reminisce and reflect on this place that she's left and how different it is now that she's not there, and also how different she is. So the last excerpts that I wanted to read are linked. So I'm going to read the first one, and I only realized they were linked today when I was rereading this, and I was like, I have a feeling I've written this exact same version of this, but like for Reeve in Harrison's point of view. So Reeve right now is separated from her friends. We're at like breaking point territory, and she's really upset and sad because she's separated from Harrison in particular, and her and Harrison are BFFs. They're besties. They are very close. Their relationship moved really fast when they started being friends. They kind of instantly trusted each other. They were like instant siblings, right? Something happened in Seventh Virtue to the point where Harrison believes, you know, Reeve betrayed him, you know, her and Lonan did. So he cut them out of his life pretty much. Because of that, they weren't in communication for about 2 years. And at the start of Seventh Virtue, Harrison actually ends up reaching back out to Reeve, and they kind of rekindle a friendship. So funnily enough, like, they did not really like each other at the beginning of Seventh Virtue, which is tough for me because Harrison and Reeve have always loved each other, like, very much, even though, like, there's a section in book 3 where Harrison is, like, mad at everybody because they're like, nobody's listening to him and making his life harder. First excerpt that I wanted to read is actually something I wrote in NaNoWriMo in Harrison's point of view, where he really, like, is feeling for Reeve. Like, he really empathizes with her and he pities her almost in a sense because of what she's gone through. So I think that's a fun part of being a pantser. Sometimes, like, you accidentally do amazing things. When he steals a glance back at her, she's looking at her hands. Oh, Reeve, who he loves, not even just like a sister, but like an extension of himself. Reeve, whose smile reminds him of orange blossoms for no reason. Reeve, who smells of bergamot sometimes, pancakes sometimes, satsuma at others, because she cycles religiously through every Bath and Body Works shower gel. Reeve, whose pain he's only held a fraction of in his body, a pain he couldn't survive for any longer than the mere seconds he'd contorted to in her nightmares. And this is like Reeve's version of that in chapter 43. This excerpt must have come like maybe like 10 chapters ago, so this is Reeve's version, but for Harrison. She yearns for Harrison to find her, to broach the door carefully and lean down to embrace her. She wants his scent near her, warm smoke, vanilla, spice. She'd take it all if she could. Where is he? They've spent the last few weeks protecting one another, whether they truly knew it or not. And now she has no idea where her friend is, what's being done to him. Oh, Harrison. Harrison, who's too loyal for his own good. Harrison, whose stubbornness is the thing she loves most about him. Harrison, who is kinder than anyone she knows deserves. Please be okay, she wants to say, but her mouth is concrete, stuffed with moths. So instead she thinks it, hoping that somewhere, somehow, he'll hear her. Oh, they're so cute. I'm so sad because the plans are just destroying all of my vibes for like what I want to happen. We're not gonna see them together, I don't think, for a while. Harrison and Reeve have always been close and had a beautiful relationship, and it's complicated, but at the end of the day, they love each other so fiercely, and I think it's the fiercest love I've ever written. It knows no bounds. It's extremely strong. They have a great relationship. I'm doing evil things. Those are my excerpts. Share a couple excerpts from your project if you would like to in the comments, and I'd love to give them a read. Let me know what you have been writing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye.